Welcome, Jehoshua Ben-Arieh, Department of Geography at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Jehoshua, I am so happy to be able to get this talk with you today. I remember so well 10 years ago, you showed me Jerusalem. You are the expert on Jerusalem, and you know a great deal about Israeli geography. You, who were one of the first generation to be trained within the institutionalized framework of geography in Israel. Tell me now, I would like you to begin to tell something of your background and why you got interested in geography.
First of all, thank you very much, Anne, for such compliments. I started to learn geography at the Hebrew University after the establishment of the State of Israel, 1949-50. To tell the truth, I started to learn not geography. In the first year, I learned Jewish history and Bible. I was a teacher in a primary school, and my aim was to become a teacher in a secondary school. So I registered at the Hebrew University to learn these two subjects so that I can teach after that Jewish history and Bible at the secondary school. But after 1 year, I heard that a new department was established at the Hebrew University, a department of geography, led by Professor David Amiran. And this was the first department of geography, a modern one, to be established in the State of Israel. So I remember one day I stood at the window and watched what Professor Amiran is teaching in the class. And I was very much expressed by it. I saw the maps, and after that I heard that they are doing many field trips. So next year I dropped the Bible and I took geography as my second subject. So I learned geography and Jewish history for my BA degree. I finished geography and Jewish history, and I liked so much geography that I decided to continue to second degree, to the MA degree, geography as major, and to take archaeology, or which was called historical geography, as a second subject.
Second subject. And what a wonderful country in which to take up those interests. It was in a way being able to study your own homeland.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I took as a master thesis to write about the new development in the Lachish settlement region. Professor Amiran suggested me it's very interesting project to learn about it. It was planned according to crystallar theory, the villages and so on, but I found there a other interesting phenomena. There were man-made caves in this region, which no one had a solution how they were formed. So this problem so much attracted me that the major part of my dissertation or my thesis was a solution which I suggested to these man-made caves. And my first two articles to be published were on these man-made caves in Bet Guvrin area. So this attracted me again very much to historical geography.
I see. And so it was at that point, having completed that thesis, had you found a solution when you wrote your thesis?
To the master thesis I came to a very interesting conclusion that this was quarries to take cement for building purposes in the time of the Roman Empire. And people until today are accepting my solution to the excavating of these man-made caves in the area, there are hundreds of pits there and caves. I counted about 3,000 pits. But this was the master thesis.
Yes.
After that, I continued to the PhD. And the fashion during those days in Israel was that you are doing a PhD on a regional part of the country. So again, my PhD was more regional geography on the central Jordan Valley in Israel. Again, starting with geology, geomorphology, climatology, and also settlements.
A kind of Hettner-esque,
yes,
rather than French.
Even again, sequent occupants. After I finished it, with introduction, very strong introduction of physical geography, and the landscape settlement was sequent occupants. I finished it, and it was published as a book in Hebrew, and after that I published it also in English, part of it, only the human section, and I sent the copy to the many geographers. I remember until today I sent the copy to Don Mining from Syracuse. And I got an answer,
yes?
oh, what a nice sequence occupants. And I will put it in my library, and I will use it as an example of a sequence occupants.
Very good. Yes, 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 indeed. So that was your PhD, which you received in 1964 at the Hebrew University. Yes, okay. And then you went to London, yes?
Yes, then I had to decide what I'm continuing to do in my studies in geography. So again, I remember I went one day to my professor, Professor Amiran, at the Hebrew University. We had then three professors. Professor Amiran recruited two other professors, the late Professor Shatner, who was a geomorphologist, and Professor Yehuda Carbon, and they were the three Israeli first professors of geography in the country. There was only one department of geography those days, the Department of Geography in the Hebrew University, Jerusalem. So I went to David Amiran and said to him, I came to a conclusion that my main interest is historical geography. Historical geography is not developed in Israel. I want to develop it in Israel. Can you suggest me where is the best place to go and to learn about historical geography? He answered me immediately, there is one place, go to University College London, Professor Clifford Darby.
Yes.
I know him personally, I'm going to England, I will speak with him, I will arrange for you that you will be accepted there. So I applied to the British Council, I got British Council Fellowship, and 65-6 I came a year to London. It was the last year that Professor Darby headed the Department of Geography in University College, and I participated there in all the seminars and heard what they are doing in historical geography. I started to learn about the Doomsday, the geography of the Doomsday, and many other subjects of historical geography of England.
What was it that was new from the London experience, of what you learned from those seminars? What was it that was especially new for you? Oh,
I didn't know before anything about historical geography because historical geography wasn't a subject in our country.
I see.
And I learned the cross-section method and the vertical method and all the arguments about it. And, but I came to a conclusion that, again, imitation will be a mistake. I think always imitation is a worth thing to do. And during those days, Professor Darby was interested mainly in historical geography of Middle Ages and many other subjects and so on. I came to a conclusion that if I want to do a good study in historical geography in my country, I have to concentrate on modern times more.
Yes, yes.
And if on modern times, I have to start somewhere. So my conclusion has come to that I have to start on the 19th century. Because 19th century, you have to know 19th century is beginning of modern times in the Middle East. You can even count a special event, Napoleonic invasion, last year of the 18th century, 1799. The first modern maps that we have of the Middle East are from Napoleon time. So I said, let us try to do maybe a similar thing, not exactly similar, always not similar, to reconstruct what was Palestine, what was the Holy Land, what was Israel during 19th century before modernization. Because if you want to understand modernization, you have to see how it was in the time of the stagnation before it.
And that's why the 19th century.
Yeah.
This book you have done on Jerusalem, which is really a masterpiece, and it is the first of 2 volumes, I understand, recaptures so much of the morphology of the city, the daily life, and so on. And I have been looking at this book for the last couple of days, and it shocked me to read something by Mark Twain, which said that it was a dreary, desolate, hopeless place. That was not at all my image of the Holy Land, but in this you make it come alive. Can you tell something about this particular
before
work?
this I had to even to have one step before. The first thing that I had to decide about it, what sources are you using if you want to reconstruct, to learn the country in the 19th century? So until today, people are thinking that there are Ottoman sources or Arab sources, but the fact is that we don't have Ottoman sources about the landscape of the country. Even the Arabs didn't write about the country. Even the Jewish people, Jewish community that were a small Jewish community that was in the country. But I found that there is a very important another source, These are travelers and explorers that came to the Holy Land in the 19th century. There is a bibliography written by a German professor, Rehricht, that made a bibliography of all the people that came to the Holy Land from the time of beginning of Christianity as the official religion of the Ottoman Empire, from the time of the Emperor Constantine, 300 about, until 1878. He started to work on it, 1878. He made entries, items from every people that came to the country to visit it and wrote about it.
From all countries?
From all countries, from all languages.
Oh.
He worked on it 12 years, from 1878 until 1890. It was published 18. It's called Bibliotheca Palestina. And it's about, he has there about 3,500 items of people. And he is counting every book that was written by them, and paper, and even review on the books and so on. But the interesting thing is that if you are looking to the biography, you find that from 300 until 1800, there are about 1,500 people. So it means on average a year per year, a man per year. But if you are coming from 1800 to 1878, you have 2,000 people that came in the 19th century to the country, and all the names are being counted and wrote about the country. And between them scholars and consuls and missionaries and very serious peoples. It was a flood of people because of changing of the political conditions, a flood of people, and there is a lot of literature. So the problem became not less of sources, but a surplus of sources. So I have to, first of all, to evaluate, because there are many books that is a garbage. One came for a week and he tells many stories and adventures that he had, and you cannot trust the book. But there are very important scholars, professors of Bible and other studies. Societies were established all over the world to explore the Holy Land. Palestine Exploration Fund was established in 1865. Until today, all the archives, the documents are in London. A German society, a Russian society, an American society. All the consulates were established in Jerusalem. You have all the archives and documents and books. So I have to evaluate the sources. So I decided, first of all, to look to the sources, and I wrote a book, this was the first book, which is called The Rediscovery of the Holy Land in the 19th century. I am very sorry that I don't have the book with me, but this was the first step. It took me several years, and I finished it. And after that, I said, now I will use these sources to see the material that in them, to reconstruct what was the country. It happened so that 67 came, and the Six-Day War, and Jerusalem was unified. And I went and saw the old city of Jerusalem, and I saw what a pearl I have near my house. So I said, I will, first of all, the first step will be to reconstruct what was Jerusalem in the 19th century through these sources. And I wrote 2 volumes about the old city and the new city, and it took me many, many years to finish the study, but it's finished already.
Yes, it's a masterpiece. But before we get to Jerusalem, I want to ask you about those accounts of the pilgrims or the mission, those who rediscovered Israel in the 19th century. How did you interpret their accounts? Did you think that they had something valuable to say about the reality of Israel, or did you see it as something that they were seeking from their different worlds? How did you interpret those sources?
Oh, I think it goes together. On the one hand, you can find many real data in there. For instance, I made now a reconstruction of the population. What was population in the 70s of the 19th century in Palestine, in the Holy Land? And I wrote about it 4 articles according to the different sanjaks and a summary about it. I'm sorry that until now in Hebrew, but I've introduced it now in an international conference. It is going to appear in English. And I think it is the last quote about the number of population that were in the country before the modern Zionism movement. I have the figures. The figure is 350,000 people in the total area of what is Western Palestine, as it's called. So this is on the one hand. On the second hand side, certainly there were images and perception. I spent now a year, and I'm still continuing to work on it. I spent now a year in London, and I went to many archives, and I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum, because I became very much interested of paintings of the Holy Land, the images of the painters, and you will be surprised that the most important British painters made paintings of the 19th century of the Holy Land. The famous Turner, David Robert, Hunt, and many others. So I am planning now to write about the images of the perceptions of these painters of the Holy Land. In a way, they look on the Holy Land as part of the Orient. And you have the Orientalists, but it's not exactly. On the other hand, they looked on it on the land of the Bible.
Yes.
So you have the perception of the biblical country. But they looked on it also as a part of the classical world. And there were many architects that came to the country and made etchings. The famous architect that built the Westminster, the Parliament House in London, was in the Holy Land and made etchings of the Holy Land. So again, there are many perceptions and images about them of the country, and I think it's combined together. If you know the source very well, you can take from it some data, which is important, but certainly there are images and perceptions, and you have to be aware about it. They were Christian people, and they want to see many things. They were interested more in Christian subjects, less in... You cannot learn from them about the Arabs, the Arab society, because they didn't know about the Arab society. You cannot learn from them about the Jewish communities, but you can learn from them a lot about the landscape, about the vegetation, because they pay attention to these elements of landscape. And they made maps of the country. And there was a fellow from Durham, Henry Baker Tristram, a reverend, that until today we have birds called on his name, the Tristramid. He is the founder of the natural history of the country, and many others. So I think it's combined.
It's a very rich body of data. But I'm sure you have lots more to say about Jerusalem itself, especially the old city. I shall never forget that visit where you were my guide. And it was, you understood so much about the history of every little place. Tell me a little bit more about this book.
In a way, Jerusalem is a laboratory of ethnic groups.
Yes.
It's the only holy city in the world, holy to the three world monotheistic religions. I know that they say that sometimes Rome is only to the Christians, Mecca is only to the Muslims, but the only city in the world which is holy to the three world religions is this Jerusalem. So you can find there people, first of all, from three world religions. After that, you don't have many other cities in the world with such a history. A history of at least 3,000 years from the time of the Bible, from the time of King David, which was 1000 BC. Some of the scholars say Jerusalem is history in concentration.
Yes.
So you find all the ethnic groups, and the book is organized according to it.
Yes,
I thought, even I'm a geographer, first of all I said, how is the layout of the city? How are the quarters? How is the neighborhoods? How are the markets? How are the houses? Is it a Middle Eastern city or not a Middle Eastern city? But after that, it's according to the communities. I am paying it a full chapter to the Muslim community, to their houses, to their building, to their behavior, to their...
The rhythms of everyday life.
Yes. Genre de vie, in a way.
Yes.
And after that, I am paying attention to the Christians. You have the Roman Catholics, you have the Greek Orthodox, you have Armenians, you have Ethiopians, you have Syrians, and every community is a full world of life. And after that, you have all the Jewish, and the Jews also are being divided to different groups. And if you are starting at the beginning of the 19th century, there is only one group of Jews in the city. The 19th century is a development of a growth of the Jewish community in Jerusalem. At the end, you find 30 groups of Jewish people living in the city of Jerusalem. So it's, as I said before, a laboratory to learn the people. And we are speaking about the people, as my belief is geography, is people you have to learn. So you can learn about the city of Jerusalem. Another thing is that many books were written about Jerusalem, and I was afraid that this book will be, again, imitation about other books. So I decided, first of all, to concentrate on one period. This wasn't done before. In this period of the 19th century, I cannot understand 19th century if I don't know about former periods. When I'm giving a course in the department, I'm giving it Jerusalem through the ages. So you cannot understand Jerusalem of the 19th century. But in the study, in the research, to concentrate on the 19th century. Secondly, to go to details. And I was not afraid about details. Because again, if I want to get that it will be appreciated by the local people that know a lot. You have to become an authority. And I can say that the book was accepted very well by the Israeli people that know a lot on the city of Jerusalem, and one edition is published in Hebrew after the other edition.
But Jerusalem, it means so many different things to different groups. And what I wonder about this work, which is an excellent piece of scholarship, how do the other groups who inhabit this land of the Holy Land, how do they see your book? And I'm particularly curious about Muslim responses to your account, or what you think maybe Muslims might have by way of an interpretation of the 19th century.
Oh, again, I think it's a very complicated subject. On the one hand, I think they will accept many things that I am writing here, because there is a lot of data. They cannot ignore the data. It will add them to the knowledge of the city of Jerusalem. Mainly Christians, because there is a lot of material. The sources that I use are Christian sources, and you can learn a lot about the different Christian communities, even Arab Christians in the city of Jerusalem. But certainly, I believe in it, that every study, there is not a full objectivity today in a study. A study is done by through the eyes of the scholar that is doing it. And I am an Israeli, I am not ignoring it. I am a Jew. So certainly I looked on the city of Jerusalem as an Israeli. I think if a Muslim will write a book about it, maybe he will stress more the Muslim community. But I think I proved in the book that in the 19th century, the majority of the people in the city of Jerusalem were Jews, and the contribution of the Jews to the city of Jerusalem. I will be very pleased if a Muslim will write about the city of Jerusalem. Maybe we'll find more sources of Arab sources that we can add us more details about the Muslim. I don't think it will contradict, in a way, my book. It will add more details about subject that I couldn't include in my book, and I don't think that is the last word on the city of Jerusalem. My aim was also to raise more interest and more studies on the city of Jerusalem. The same was done with the book on the rediscovery of the Holy Land in the 19th century. Yes. And I can be proud about it, I think, that when I published the book on the rediscovery of the Holy Land in the 19th century, it appeared before the first time in Hebrew in 1970, the people didn't know much about this lot of literature, the traveler, the explorer. And now the country is flooded with people, with books, and translation of these books to Hebrew. So sometimes the importance of study is the interest that it raised after that. If the result will be that such a book will be published by a Muslim scholar, there will not be more happy men than myself.
Oh, that is lovely to hear. Geography in the service of intercultural mutual understanding and so on. But your ecumenical attitude then, it's authentically Jewish, but it's ecumenical in the sense that it would welcome other versions. Has this something to do with your travels abroad? You have contacts.
I want to add before, it could sometimes maybe even criticized by Jews. Because I'm using mainly Christian sources. You have to know that from the travelers that came to the Holy Land, this is my main source, or the consulates, 90% were Christians. So, but the Jewish people are accepting it that is a geographical study. It's not a study of the Jewish people in the Jewish community. And I want also that the Muslim people will also understand and accept it, that it's not a study of the Muslim community. I am not daring to deal with the Muslim community. I don't know the Muslim religion. It's more a study of the landscape, of the geography. Because of this, it's an historical geography of the city of Jerusalem. It's about the building, the places, the people that lived in the country. In such a way, I think it's very objective, and I try to do the best that it will be objective.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. You know, it was Goethe who said that architecture is frozen music.
I agree.
So there are many melodies.
Thank you.
You have traveled abroad quite much, What have you learned from those travels? What is it that you remember from them?
As I said to you before, my first experience abroad was in London, England. And I think I learned a lot there about historical geography. But when I came back, I was minded reconstruction of historical geography, and more Middle Ages. So I became interested more in modern times, 19th century. I thought maybe I can learn more historical geography of modern times in the United States, because there the history is only history of modern times. And I heard about many historical geographers. I heard about Andy Clark, I heard about the School of Historical Geography of Wisconsin, about all these students. I read the books that were written by Cole Harris and Jim Lemon and Roy Merens and David Ward and many others. So I thought I have to go to the States. So I went to University of Maryland. It happened there that I got a position as a visiting professor, and I went to University of Maryland, College Park, and I stayed there for a year. And there I asked people if they know what is going in historical geography, if some studies were done there, and they said to me, go to the seminar library, and there you can see all the studies that done. I went, and I remember until today that I saw once a title written, Why Washington, D.C. became the capital of the United States. Written, master thesis, written by known historical geographer Roy Merens. So I started to look to it, and I was very much impressed. All the master thesis was not geography, was not physical geography, was citation from discussions in the American Congress. And when I read more and more and more, I saw that what Roy tried to prove is that the decision that Washington, D.C. became the capital of the United States was an arbitrary decision of George Washington. There is not any connection to physical geography, to the Potomac River, to the waterfalls, and all the other classification. George Washington saw politically on D.C. and pushed strongly, and all the master thesis is showing that, trying to prove that this was an arbitrary decision of George Washington. So this brought me again that historical geography can be more a decision of peoples. And it brought me back to Jerusalem. Why Jerusalem became the capital? Why Jerusalem became the religious city with 43 world religious monotheistic religions? So I came back and I looked to the history, and here again an arbitrary decision 2,000 years or 3,000 years ago, King David, when he wanted to build his United Kingdom, there was the Judah tribe in the south, there was Benjamin tribe in the north. He ruled 7 years in the Hebron city, the capital of Judah, and he wanted to unite all the tribes, so he looked for a neutral city on the border between Judah and Benjamin, the two most important tribes, and he chose the city of Jerusalem and decided, here I will build a capital. So King David in 1000 BC and George Washington 200 years ago, you can find comparisons that geographical facts and geographical decisions that capitals will be built and the important cities will be built can be based, or the source for them is decision of people, and sometimes it's not connected with any all with physical geography. I hope I'm not saying too much against physical geography. I appreciate very much the role of physical geography in geography, but I think sometimes in historical geography you can deal with people alone, because the contribution of people and societies is very important, and they by themselves can form a very important factor in historical geography.
Well, this surely is borne out in the history of modern Israel. The decisions of people to make the valleys green again with irrigation.
I will mention you a citation from Friedrich Ratzel, which I use in one of my articles, that say, I can know New England without knowing the land, but never without knowing the Puritan immigrants. Right. I will say exactly, you can know Israel without knowing the land, but never without knowing the Jewish people or the Zionist movement, the ideology of the Zionist movement. Exactly. You cannot understand the kibbutz in Israel without knowing the ideology, and the kibbutz in the north and the south, in the Negev, and in the desert, in the rainy area, in the mountains, in the coastal plain will be the same kibbutz, because it is an ideological phenomenon.
Now, let me be very provocative. why study all that? If I were a young Israeli student, why should I be curious about historical geography? Could it help me to understand today and tomorrow?
First of all, I want to finish my visits in the States.
Okay,
so I was very much impressed by the different studies done by this group of historical geographers, and they in the States also paid a lot of attention to people. So I learned from them, and I said I will continue to do the studies on the people in the country in the 19th century. And to answer your question, I think it's very important now to learn. If you want to understand the state of Israel, I don't think that you can start with the situation of the country today. You will not understand the state of Israel if you are not going to the beginning of it, to the ideology that brought the Jewish people to the country in the 19th century. And I think it's very important. It's also the people in the country are becoming more and more interested now in the 19th century. You know, once it was known in the country that archaeology was the national hobby, the sport in Israel.
Yes.
Everybody's digging in Israel.
Yeah.
And archaeology was very well accepted. And people are still interested very much because it's the roots, the origin of the Jewish people, the time of the first Bible, the first temple, we have the Bible, the time of the second Bible, we have the Hasmonaean period, and there are other important periods, like the Crusader periods, the Muslim periods. But people are now becoming more and more interested in the 19th century. Because 19th century is the beginning of modern times. On one hand, again, we have a perspective, we have enough time to see it is already history. We are not so involved in it. Yes. On the other hand, it's close to us. We can explain. I don't think you can understand Jerusalem of today if you don't know the development of the city of Jerusalem in the 19th century. And also because of this literature, of the travelers, the etching, paintings, which is so nice. There is now a growing interest in the country in the 19th century. I will tell you a story.
Yes.
When I published my book on Jerusalem in Hebrew, I wanted to put, like I put in my English edition, many etchings and engravings that people got the spirit, the atmosphere of the period. One day, I found in a book that was translated to Hebrew, a bird's eye view of the city of Jerusalem. A splendid one. Every building you can see. But it was not written who made the map. So I called the publisher. I said, from where you took the map that you put in this book that you translated to Hebrew? He said, I found it somewhere. Who made it? I don't know. Okay. So I took sections of this map with his permission, and I put in my Hebrew, in the Hebrew edition of the book, and I acknowledged at the edge, acknowledging this fellow that gave me the map. I didn't know who made the map. After 2 years, one of my assistants in the Department of Geography came running to me and said, I found. I said, what you found? I found who made the map that all of us are looking for. So I said, how you find? I went to another collection of maps and I found there the same map, and on the bottom of it, it's written Stefan Ilesh. Ilesh. So I said, oh, if Stefan Ilesh, we can now go to the bibliography of Freiricht, have a look if there was a fellow like Stefan Ilesh. And so we went together to the bibliography of Freiricht, and we found Stefan Ilesh, a Dominican monk.
Dominican.
Yes, I think, or something so, or so, maybe Franciscan.
Oh, Dominican.
Came to Jerusalem and made maps of the city of Jerusalem, and made also a model of the city of Jerusalem that was displayed in an international exhibition in Vienna in 1873.
Wow.
So we tried to learn about this map and model. Another student joined and wrote a paper. He was from Hungary. This Stefan Ilesh came from Hungary. Anyhow, they found that Stefan Ilesh came to Jerusalem, was in the monastery, after that went outside and opened a bindery shop in the city of Jerusalem, and worked for 3-4 years preparing a model 4 meters and 4.5 meters large of the city of Jerusalem as it was in the beginning of the 70s, built from zinc, and it was displayed in this exhibition and raised enthusiasm in everyone. And after that, he went from one city to the other city in Europe for 5 years, from 1873 to 1878, and gave lectures on the city of Jerusalem using this model, and was interested to sell the model. And at the end, he sold the model in Geneva to the community, which was a Christian community, and the model was displayed there until First World War and disappeared. So some of you say, maybe we can find the model again.
Maybe.
So one day, the students sat in the cafeteria of the Hebrew University and told the story. A map, a model, all the things. On the side, a girl sat and said, I am from Geneva. I am going for Passover, Jewish holiday, to my parents in Geneva. If your professor will give me a letter, I will ask my parents. Maybe they can find the model. So I gave a letter. She came to the parents in Geneva. Her father is a very energetic man, David Littman, his name. He ran immediately all over Geneva and found the model in the cellars of the House of the League of Nations. Oh. He immediately brought pictures of it to Jerusalem. We applied to the mayor of the city of Jerusalem, tell the colleague. The model was brought to Jerusalem. The Christian community in Jerusalem gave it as a lease to the city of Jerusalem for 10 years. And last December, it was exhibited in the citadel of the city of Jerusalem, and became attraction. People all over the country are coming to see the model in the city of Jerusalem. I brought it as an example to show the interest, the growth of interest of the people in 19th century. And all the time books are being translated to Hebrew, and people are becoming more and more interested in 19th century. I think it's a splendid, marvelous period.
This model, which is on display, who comes to see it? Everybody?
I think, first of all, certainly Jewish people. It's very interesting. Okay. A model that was done by a Christian monk.
A Dominican monk.
A Dominican monk.
Oh, wonderful. 2
Jewish Israeli students are writing a paper on it, are searching on it all over the world. A Jewish fellow from Geneva is cooperating with Christian people in Geneva to bring it to the city of Jerusalem. But not only Jews, certainly Christians, and every visitor that is coming now to the city of Jerusalem, it's near the Jaffa Gate. If you will go to the citadel, it's there illuminated with slides and very well done, located there.
I'm sure many of us would just love to come, but you are suggesting then that historical geography involves not just a search for new data and scientific reconstructions of things, but it has emotional appeal for many people. They find their roots in the reconstructed landscape of 100 years ago. How do you see the value of this for those who want to know about the future of Israel? That is a concern, I'm sure, among many young people. Can geography be a base for building some sort of platform for thinking about the future?
Oh, first of all, I believe that we learn the past for the present to plan the future.
Yes.
And certainly, first of all, many things of the study of our studies. The example of the model is used out for the people that are coming to the country, but not only the model. There is many houses in Jerusalem that we are very much involved in to keep them and to preserve them. We are very active in preservation and conservation. Students of historical geography and geography are involved in preservation of the country. But not that's only. I believe that the future is very difficult to predict. The present we know. The past we can explore. We can learn, we can study. So I think if we learn well the past, and I believe again, as historians are believing, that if you are doing a good study on one period of the history, you can judge much better after that the present, and also to know how to predict and how to behave and how to plan the future.
The future, yes. Well, you express such enormous commitment and interest in historical geography, and I suspect it may have something to do with your own personal background and family.
Yeah, in a way it's right, and as you saw, I paid mainly respect to 19th century historical geography. Some people are saying it's because of my family background. I have to tell you that I am a fourth generation in the country. My great-grandfathers from both sides, from my father's side and from my mother's side, came in the 19th century, in the mid of the 19th century, to the city of Jerusalem, and were from the first settlers to build the first Jewish settlement in Israel in 1878. Certainly I am proud on them, what they made. As an Israeli, and I am interested very much to know this period, to learn this period, to teach, and that people will know what was done in the 19th century in Jerusalem and all over the country, and how the Israeli people came back to their country and built it again.
But isn't that straight narcissism?
I don't think so. I think, again, that in geography, you have to pay a lot. What is now missing between the geographers in the world, attention to history, to roots, to ideology. I don't think that you can understand Israel without knowing the ideology of the Israeli people. And this Israeli is a geography. I think that the Israeli geographers, my best friends, learned a lot from the American geography, from the European geography, in planning, in urban, in physical geography. It's very important. I'm not ignoring it. But if we want to give an example from Israel to the world, I don't think that we can bring an example from urban planning or from other subjects. The example that we can bring from Israel is the importance of ideology and culture in geography. Because here, I think, Israel is unique in a way. Only you cannot find other places that the landscape was so changed by an ideological movement that came to the country and rebuilt it again and flourished the desert. And I think if we will show what the Israeli people and how it was connected to their ideology and culture, I think it will be a very important contribution to the geographers all over the world to pay attention more to culture and to history, which I think in a way are a little ignored between the geographers today.
Well, Yehoshua, you certainly have done your bit to make that point with your historical studies. And let's hope that in the basis of this, we can look forward to more open windows between the Israeli and other schools of geography. Thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Anne, for your review.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.